The day I inherited Bella Vista Vineyard was the day my family showed their true colors. Not that I was surprised. The Rosses had always been more interested in wine profits than winemaking. But watching them see as Aunt Marie's will was read, I realized just how little they understood about her legacy. My name is Isabella Romano, and my aunt had just left me what my family called 40 acres of worthless grapes. What they didn't know was that those grapes were about to reveal a secret that would shake the wine world to its core. "This is ridiculous," Uncle Marco fumed, pacing the law office in his Italian leather shoes. Marie was clearly not in her right mind. The vineyard should go to someone who understands the business. By someone, he meant his son Anthony, who had spent the last decade trying to convince Aunt Marie to sell Bella Vista to a major wine conglomerate. She'd refused every offer, watching quietly as the vineyard's reputation declined, and its wines became, in critics' words, unremarkable. "The will is quite clear, Mr. Patterson," Marie's longtime attorney stated firmly. "Bella Vista Vineyard, including all property, equipment, and assets, goes to Isabella Romano. There are no conditions or restrictions. She's a librarian." My cousin Sophia scoffed, adjusting her designer sunglasses. "What does she know about wine?" More than they realized. While they saw me as the quiet bookworm who chose an academia over the family business, they'd forgotten who had spent every summer at Bella Vista since childhood, who had learned every aspect of winemaking at Aunt Marie's side, who had inherited her sensitive palate and love for the art of wine. Mary spent 20 years running that vineyard into the ground. Uncle Marco continued. "The soil's depleted, the vines are old, the wine is mediocre. Take our offer, Isabella. We'll give you fair market value, and you can go back to your books." I thought about the last conversation I'd had with Aunt Marie just a week before she passed. She'd been sitting in her study at Bella Vista, surrounded by old wine journals and vintage bottles. "Patience, my dear," she'd said, her eyes twinkling with that familiar mischief. "The truth, like the finest wine, reveals itself to those who know how to wait." "I'm keeping the vineyard," I said firmly, gathering the deed and other documents from Mr. Patterson. "You're making a mistake," Anthony warned. "That place hasn't produced anything worth drinking in 20 years. If only they knew." The drive to Bella Vista took 40 minutes, winding through the Sonoma Valley. The late afternoon sun gilded the rows of grapevines that generations of my family had tended. To untrained eyes, they might look neglected, even sickly, but I saw what Aunt Marie had taught me to see. Vines that had been carefully stressed, forced to drive their roots deep into the mineral-rich soil. The main house was a rambling Spanish colonial, its white walls glowing in a sunset. This had been my sanctuary during childhood summers, escaping my parents' constant social climbing in San Francisco. Here, Aunt Marie had taught me that winemaking wasn't about profit margins. It was about patience, tradition, and secrets passed down through generations. Inside, everything was exactly as she'd left it. The kitchen still smelled of herbs and coffee. Her collection of vintage corkscrews hung on the wall. Her wine journals filled the study shelves, each volume meticulously documenting decades of harvests, fermentations, and blends. But something was different. On her desk, in the spot where she always laid out her daily work, sat a single key with a note in her elegant handwriting. "For Isabella, when you're ready to know the truth." I recognized the key's distinctive design. It was older than the others on her ring, its brass worn smooth by time. But I'd never seen her use it. A knock at the door interrupted my thoughts. Marcus Torres, Bella Vista's vineyard manager for the past 30 years, stood on the porch with a sympathetic smile. "Thought you might need some help getting settled," he said. I heard about the will reading. Marcus had been Aunt Marie's right hand, the only person she trusted completely with the vineyard's operations. He taught me about soil composition and root systems, while other kids my age were learning to ride bikes. "They think it's worthless," I told him, letting him in. "They can't understand why she'd leave it to me." Marcus's eyes twinkled, reminding me of Aunt Marie. "Your aunt was many things, but foolish wasn't one of them. Have you found it yet?" "Found what?" He nodded at the key in my hand. "That's not just any key. It opens something special. Something Marie said you'd know what to do with when the time came." I studied the key more carefully. Its head was decorated with a grapevine pattern, the teeth showing signs of age but still sharp. "The wine cellar?" I asked, "but I've been down there hundreds of times." Marcus shook his head. "Not that cellar." For the next hour, we searched the house methodically. Every room, every closet, looking for a lock that might match this mysterious key. Finally, in the study, I noticed something odd about the vintage wine map hanging behind Aunt Marie's desk. Moving it aside revealed a small door set into the wall, its lock green with age. The key fit perfectly. Beyond the door, a narrow staircase descended into darkness. The beam of our flashlights revealed stone walls lined with wine racks, the air cool and perfectly still. But these weren't ordinary wines. My God, Marcus breathed, examining the nearest bottle. Do you know what this is? I lifted my flashlight, reading the label. My hands started shaking. Chateau Lafite Rothschild, 1869. One of the rarest, most valuable wines in existence. And it wasn't alone. The cellar held hundreds of bottles, each one a legendary vintage worth more than most houses. This is impossible, I whispered. These wines, they're worth millions. Keep looking, Marcus urged. There's more. At the far end of the cellar, we found another door. This one opened into a small room that made me gasp. Lining the walls were racks of wine bottles bearing Bella Vista's label, but not from recent years. These were vintages from the Vineyard's golden age, when it had produced some of California's most sought-after wines. On a small table sat a leather-bound journal and an envelope with my name. Inside was a letter in Aunt Marie's handwriting. My dearest Isabella, if you're reading this, you found what I spent 20 years protecting. The rare vintages in the outer cellar are valuable, yes, but they're not my true legacy. That lies in the bottles that surround this letter. These are Bella Vista's secret vintages, wines made exactly as my grandfather taught me, using techniques passed down through generations. While the world thought our vineyard had lost its way, I was quietly making small batches of the finest wine we've ever produced. Why the secrecy? Because true winemaking, the kind that produces something transcendent, can't be rushed or commercialized. When your uncle and cousins pushed for higher production and faster turnover, I knew they'd never understand. So I let them think the vineyard was failing while preserving our real treasure. The wider cellar's contents will give you the financial security to run Bella Vista your way. The secret vintages will prove to the world that our winemaking legacy never died. It was just waiting for the right heir. You were always that heir, Isabella. You understand that wine isn't just about business. It's about passion, patience, and respect for tradition. Now it's your turn to carry our legacy forward. All my love, Aunt Mary. P.S. Check the last vintage in the rack to your right. I think you'll find it interesting. With trembling hands, I lifted the bottle she'd indicated. The label read Bella Vista Private Reserve 2019. Aunt Marie's final vintage before her death. She finished it, Marcus said softly. Her last masterpiece. She knew she wouldn't live to see it released, but she made it anyway. For me, I realized. She made it for me to release when I was ready. The implications of what we found were staggering. The rare vintages alone would make headlines in the wine world. But Aunt Marie's secret wines, they would rewrite Bella Vista's story completely. My phone buzzed. Uncle Marco's number. No doubt calling to make another offer for the worthless vineyard. I let it go to voicemail, my mind already racing with plans. What are you thinking? Marcus asked, recognizing the look in my eye. The same one Aunt Marie used to get when she was plotting something extraordinary. I smiled, picking up her journal. I'm thinking it's time to show the world what Bella Vista can really do. But first, we have some work to do. The next few hours would change everything. But that's another story, one that begins with a single decision. When to reveal the truth that would transform not just my family's legacy, but the entire California wine industry. The next morning, I sat in Aunt Marie's study reviewing her private wine journals. Each page revealed another layer of her brilliant deception, how she maintained two parallel operations at Bella Vista for 20 years. The commercial side produced decent but unremarkable wines, while her secret cellar housed masterpieces crafted using centuries-old techniques. The soil tests came back, Marcus announced, entering with a stack of papers. Just as Marie predicted, the vines aren't depleted at all. They're perfect for producing the kind of complex wines she was making in secret. I smiled, thinking of how my family had misread everything about Bella Vista. She stressed the vines deliberately, didn't she? Forced them to work harder, develop more character. Exactly. While your uncle was complaining about low yields, Marie was creating exactly the conditions she wanted. These test results prove it. Bella Vista has some of the best terroir in California. My phone buzzed again. The 10th call from Uncle Marco since yesterday. This time I answered. Isabella, his voice oozed concern. We're worried about you, alone up there in that old house. Why don't you come down to the city? We can have dinner, discuss a fair price for the vineyard. Actually, Uncle Marco, I'm meeting with Christie's auction house this afternoon. They're very interested in some rare wines I've discovered. Silence on the line. Then, what rare wines? Oh, just a few bottles Aunt Marie left behind, including a Chateau Lafite Rothschild from 1869. Amazing what you find when you look carefully, isn't it? The phone went dead. Within an hour, a convoy of expensive cars was winding up Bella Vista's driveway. This is private property, I called out as my uncle and cousins spilled from their vehicles. You weren't invited. Private property. Uncle Marco's face was red. This is family property. If there are valuable wines here, they belong to all of us. Actually, Mr. Patterson's voice cut in as his car pulled up. Everything belongs to Isabella. I thought you might need backup, he added to me with a wink. What followed was the most satisfying hour of my life. We led them to the hidden cellar, watching their expressions change from skepticism to shock to naked greed as they realized what Aunt Marie had concealed. These wines, Anthony's voice shook. They're worth millions, I finished. And that's just the investment cellar. Would you like to see what else Aunt Marie left me? The secret room with Bella Vista's private vintages hit them even harder. Sophia actually gasped when she read the testing notes that proved these wines could rival the world's best. All this time, Uncle Marco whispered, while we thought she was failing. She was perfecting her craft, I said. Away from your constant pressure to sell out, to maximize profits at the expense of quality. She created masterpieces while you were counting dollars. We can still fix this, he rallied. As a family, we'll form a new company, market these wines properly. No, I cut him off. Aunt Marie left Bella Vista to me because she knew I'd understand what she was trying to preserve. This isn't about money, it's about legacy. You can't just shut us out. Anthony protested. We're family. Family? I laughed. Yesterday you called this place worthless. Called me incompetent. Now suddenly you want to be partners. Mr. Patterson cleared his throat. I have some additional documents you should see. Marie left very specific instructions about how these wines should be handled. The plan Aunt Marie had laid out was brilliant. The rare vintages in the investment cellar would be auctioned through Christie's, creating a multimillion-dollar endowment to support Bella Vista's true mission. Her private vintages would be released slowly, reestablishing the vineyard's reputation for excellence. More importantly, she documented everything, every technique, every secret that made her wines exceptional. Knowledge meant to be passed down, not sold to the highest bidder. The next few months transformed everything. The auction of the rare wines made international headlines. Hidden wine cellar yields million-dollar vintages. Wine critics flocked to Bella Vista when we released the first of Aunt Marie's private vintages. Extraordinary, Robert Parker wrote. A wine that challenges everything we thought we knew about California vintages, 100 points. The publicity revealed the truth about Aunt Marie's supposed decline. She hadn't failed. She'd chosen to step away from commercial success to preserve something more valuable. Each bottle we released proved that Bella Vista's legacy was stronger than ever. My family tried everything to gain control. They filed lawsuits claiming the wines were family property. They appealed to other vintners, trying to turn the industry against me. Nothing worked. Then came the day we released Aunt Marie's final vintage, the 2019 she'd made especially for me. Wine lovers and critics gathered in Bella Vista's courtyard for the first tasting. This wine, I told them, represents everything my aunt believed in. That true quality can't be rushed. That some traditions are worth preserving. That excellence speaks for itself. The response was beyond anything we'd imagined. Critics called it a masterpiece. A wine that will be talked about for decades. Orders flooded in from collectors worldwide. Uncle Marco showed up the next day, alone. I never understood her, he admitted, looking older and somehow diminished. I saw the declining sales, the lower production, and thought she was failing. I never realized she was choosing a different path. She tried to tell you, I said. All those times you pushed her to sell, to modernize, to focus on profits. She was trying to show you that some things are worth more than money. And now? What will you do with her legacy? I led him to the vineyard, where new vines were being planted using Aunt Marie's methods. I'm going to honor it, Keep Bella Vista small, focus on quality over quantity. Make wines that matter. You sound just like her, he said softly. Thank you. Bella Vista flourished over the next year, but not in the way my family had always pushed for. We produced limited quantities of exceptional wines, focusing on quality and tradition. The waiting list for our bottles grew longer with each release. Sophia eventually came to work at the Vineyard, surprised to find she had a talent for understanding wine once she stopped focusing on status and profits. Anthony opened a wine bar in San Francisco, proudly featuring Bella Vista's vintages. Last week, a young winemaker asked my advice after a tasting. Everyone says I need to expand production, focus on commercial success, she said. But I want to make wines that mean something. I showed her Aunt Marie's original wine journals, still kept in her study. Success isn't always measured in cases sold, I told her. Sometimes it's about having the courage to take the harder path, to preserve something valuable even when others don't understand. Marcus joined us, carrying a special bottle, one of the few remaining from Aunt Marie's private collection. Want to know the real secret? He asked, decanting a wine with practiced care. It's not about the wine at all. It's about understanding that some legacies are meant to be preserved, not exploited. The wine was perfect, of course. But more than that, it was a reminder of what Aunt Marie had really left me, not just valuable bottles or secret techniques, but the understanding that true worth isn't always visible on the surface. The vineyard continues to thrive, producing wines that honor both tradition and innovation. Uncle Marcos still visits occasionally, finally learning to appreciate wine for its own sake rather than its profit potential. And me? I've learned that some inheritances are about more than property or possessions. They're about preserving something precious, about having the patience to let quality speak for itself. In Aunt Marie's study, her last note to me is framed on the wall. The finest wines, like the truest legacies, reveal themselves to those who know how to wait. As I write this from the study that was once hers, overlooking vines that grow stronger each year, I think about how different things might have been if she'd given in to pressure, chosen profit over principle. The cellar's secret door remains, though it's not so secret anymore. But its lesson lives on. Sometimes the most valuable things are hidden from those too busy counting profits to understand true worth. After all, the finest vintages, like the best revenge, are best served with patience, clarity, and the quiet confidence that quality will always find its audience. The day I was supposed to sell my grandfather's land, I stood at the edge of what my family called the worthless 40 acres of seemingly empty Kansas farmland that hadn't grown a decent crop in decades. To them, it was just another failed piece of the family farm. To me, it was everything. My name is James Cooper, and for the past 2 years, I've been building something beneath this land that would change everything. Not that my Uncle Robert or my cousins knew that. They thought I was just another failed engineer, too sentimental to let go of Grandpa's worthless inheritance. Look who finally showed up. Uncle Robert's voice boomed across the field. He stood by his shiny new pickup truck, dressed like he was heading to a business meeting rather than standing in the middle of farmland, ready to sign away this dust bowl and join the real world. I forced a smile, remembering Grandpa's last words to me. Patience, Jimmy. Sometimes the best revenge is letting them think they've won. 2 years earlier, I'd inherited this piece of land while my uncle and cousins got the valuable parts of the farm. The working fields, the equipment, the buildings. They'd laughed when I asked for this particular 40 acres, seeing it as proof that I was just as impractical as Grandpa had been. What they didn't know was that Grandpa and I had planned this years ago, back when I was still studying geological engineering at MIT. He'd seen something in this land that others had missed, something that would make it perfect for what I had in mind. The lawyers are waiting in town, Uncle Robert continued, checking his Rolex. $5 million, Jimmy, more than this Westland is worth, and you know it. Behind him, my cousins Brad and Tyler smirked. They'd spent the last 2 years trying to pressure me into selling, watching with amusement as I wasted time out here with my surveying equipment and mysterious deliveries. Just need to check one last thing, I said, walking toward what looked like an old storm cellar, the only visible structure on the property. Meet you at the lawyer's office in an hour. Don't try to back out now, Brad warned. We've got buyers ready to move. Major distribution company. They think maybe they can use it for warehouse space. I bit back a laugh. If they only knew what was already under their feet. As their truck pulled away, kicking up dust, I entered the storm cellar and pressed my palm against a hidden scanner. The back wall slid aside silently, revealing a modern elevator. 2 years of secret construction, funded by private investors who understood my vision, had transformed this worthless land into something extraordinary. The elevator descended 6 stories underground, opening into a vast facility that would have made my uncle's eyes pop out of his head. Climate-controlled rooms stretched for acres, filled with server racks and cooling systems. This wasn't just a data center, it was the future of sustainable computing. All systems still running perfectly. Sarah Chen, my chief operations officer, reported as I entered the main control room. The geothermal cooling system is exceeding expectations. We're using 70% less energy than a conventional data center. I nodded, watching the monitors that showed every aspect of our underground operation. The facility used the natural cooling properties of deep earth combined with the latest in geothermal technology to create the world's most energy-efficient data center. Major tech companies were already lining up to rent space, attracted by the combination of security and sustainability. The Department of Defense representatives are on their way, Sarah continued. They're very interested in the security implications of our underground design. Perfect timing, I smiled. How long until the property transfer triggers the public registration? About an hour after you sign. Everything's filed and ready. The moment they record the sale, our permits and licenses become public record. I checked my watch. The lawyers would be waiting, along with my uncle and cousins, eager to finally get their hands on what they thought was worthless land. They had no idea they were about to become the laughingstock of the business world. Has the press release been prepared? Sarah handed me a tablet. Ready to go. Revolutionary underground data center opens in Kansas. World's most energy-efficient computing facility valued at $2 billion. $2 billion. That's what analysts estimated the facility was worth, between the advanced technology, the perfect location, and the long-term contracts we'd already secured. My uncle was about to sell his rights to the surface land for $5 million, thinking he was taking advantage of my sentimentality. The elevator hummed as I returned to the surface. Through the high-tech security cameras, I watched my uncle's truck returning, probably wondering why I was late to the signing. "Where have you been?" he demanded as I approached the lawyer's office in town. "Don't tell me you're having second thoughts about selling this worthless piece off." "No second thoughts," I cut him off, entering the office. "Let's get this done." The next hour was a blur of paperwork and signatures. My uncle and cousins could barely contain their glee as they watched me sign away what they thought was just empty land. The buyers, a shell company I created, were represented by proxy, everything handled through lawyers. "Well, that's that," Uncle Robert said as the final papers were signed. "Maybe now you can get a real job instead of playing around with your little surveys and experiments." I checked my phone. The property transfer had been recorded. Any minute now. Right on cue, every phone in the room started buzzing. News alerts, messages, emails, all sharing the same shocking announcement about the revolutionary underground facility that had just gone public. Uncle Robert's face turned white as he read the headlines. $2 billion? Turns out it wasn't so worthless after all, I said calmly. Amazing what you can build underground with 2 years and the right vision. By the way, you might want to turn on the business news. I hear they're doing a special report on the future of sustainable computing. Brad grabbed his phone, frantically scrolling. "This is impossible. We've been watching that land. There's nothing there." "Nothing you could see," I corrected. "But then, you never did look beyond the surface, did you? Too busy laughing at Grandpa's worthless inheritance to notice the geological surveys, the construction equipment, the power lines being laid." "You can't do this," Tyler sputtered. We just sold our rights to the surface land, yes, for exactly what you thought it was worth. The underground facility. That belongs to Cooper Sustainable Technologies, my company. Built with private investment and fully permitted 2 years ago. Check the records. They're all public now. Uncle Robert slumped in his chair, realization dawning. Your grandfather, he knew about this possibility, didn't he? That's why he left you this particular piece of land. I smiled, remembering long conversations with Grandpa about geology, sustainable energy, and the future of technology. He knew the land's real value wasn't in what you could grow on top of it, But then he always said some people can only see what's right in front of them. Walking out of the lawyer's office, I felt a weight lift from my shoulders. 2 years of secrecy, of enduring their mockery while building something revolutionary, had finally paid off. But this was just the beginning. The facility wasn't just about proving my family wrong. It was about changing how the world thought about sustainable technology. And now finally, I could show everyone what we built. Sarah was waiting in the car outside, ready for the press conference. I looked back at the office where my uncle and cousins were still staring at their phones in shock. Ready. It's time to show the world what you can build on worthless land. The press conference was held right on the property, with hundreds of reporters gathered around what appeared to be nothing more than an old storm cellar in an empty field. News helicopters circled overhead, trying to spot any sign of the revolutionary facility that had suddenly appeared in their business alerts. Ladies and gentlemen, I began, standing at a podium with Sarah beside me. Welcome to the future of sustainable computing. As if on cue, the ground began to vibrate slightly. Behind me, sections of the earth slowly separated, revealing massive glass panels set into the ground. Through them, reporters could see the first level of our facility, a stunning array of servers and cooling systems, all bathed in soft blue light. What you're seeing is just the surface. Quite literally, I continued. Cooper Sustainable Technologies has built the world's first underground geothermal data center, using the Earth's natural cooling properties to create the most energy-efficient computing facility ever designed. The crowd gasped as more panels opened, offering different views into the facility. Reporters frantically snapped photos while tech bloggers live-streamed everything. "But how did you keep this secret?" someone shouted. "This much construction." I smiled. Sometimes the best place to hide something is in plain sight. Every permit was filed legally, every construction phase documented. We just let people see what they expected to see, a worthless piece of land where nothing interesting could possibly be happening. From the back of the crowd, I spotted Uncle Robert and my cousins, their faces a mix of shock and growing comprehension. They'd spent 2 years watching trucks come and go, seeing construction equipment at work, but had been so convinced the land was worthless that they'd never questioned what was really happening. "Mr. Cooper," a reporter from the Wall Street Journal stepped forward. "Sources say you've already secured contracts with major tech companies and possibly the Department of Defense. Can you confirm?" Before I could answer, a convoy of black SUVs pulled up. Men in suits emerged, led by General Sarah Matthews of the Pentagon Cybersecurity Division. "We can confirm that," the general announced, joining me at the podium. "The Department of Defense has signed a 10-year contract with Cooper Sustainable Technologies. The facility's unique design offers unprecedented security advantages, and its sustainability metrics align perfectly with our green energy initiatives." The announcement sent shockwaves through the crowd. Pentagon contracts were the holy grail of tech infrastructure, nearly impossible to get, but guaranteed long-term stability once secured. "The future of computing isn't just about processing power," I continued. "It's about sustainability, security, and thinking differently about how we use our resources. Sometimes what looks like worthless land to some people is actually the perfect foundation for innovation." After the press conference, as reporters were being given carefully controlled tours of the upper levels, Uncle Robert approached me. He'd lost his usual swagger, looking older and somehow deflated. "Jimmy," he said quietly, "your grandfather, he knew about this potential, didn't he? That's why he specifically left you this piece of land?" I nodded. He understood the geology, the natural cooling properties of the limestone formations under the property. He knew it was perfect for what I wanted to build. But he also knew something else. "What's that?" "That you'd never see its value. You'd be so focused on traditional farming, so sure that land was only good for what you could grow on it, that you'd never look deeper." Brad and Tyler joined their father, both looking uncomfortable. "But all those trucks, the construction." Brad began. "You saw exactly what you expected to see," I said. "Some failed engineer playing with his inheritance, probably wasting time and money on another crazy scheme. Just like you thought Grandpa was crazy for keeping this worthless piece of land all those years." "We were wrong," Tyler admitted, surprising me. "About the land, about you, about everything." Sarah approached with another group of visitors, CEOs from major tech companies eager to tour the facility that was revolutionizing their industry. "Excuse me," I told my family. "I have some real business to attend to." The next few months transformed everything. Cooper Sustainable Technologies went public, with our initial stock offering breaking records for a tech infrastructure company. The facility's innovation earned awards for environmental design and energy efficiency. More importantly, it sparked a revolution in how people thought about sustainable technology. Other companies began exploring underground facilities, looking for ways to use natural geology to their advantage. Uncle Robert tried to contest the land sale, of course. His lawyers argued that he hadn't known of the facility's existence when he sold his surface rights. But every permit, every document, every phase of construction had been legally filed and publicly available. He just never bothered to look. "Your cousin's quite something," I overheard General Matthews telling Brad at a facility tour 6 months later. "He saw potential where everyone else saw worthless land. That's the kind of vision we need in this country." Brad's face reddened. "Yeah, we kind of missed that." The facility expanded over the next year, adding new levels and innovations. We bought surrounding properties, paying fair market value, unlike my uncle's attempted lowball purchase of my land, and built a sustainable technology campus that transformed the region. One afternoon, as I stood in the main control room watching our systems operate at peak efficiency, Sarah brought me a familiar-looking box. "Found this in the old storm cellar," she said. "Thought you might want it." Inside was my grandfather's old geological survey kit, the one he used to first identify the unique properties of this land. With it was a letter I'd never seen before, dated just before his death. "Dear Jimmy, by now you've probably built something amazing on that worthless 40 acres. I knew you would. Not just because you understood the science, but because you understood something more important. That true value isn't always visible on the surface. Your uncle and cousins will probably be angry when they realize what they missed. That's natural. But remember what I taught you. Success isn't about proving others wrong. It's about proving yourself right. I left you that land not just because it was perfect for your vision, but because you were the only one who ever looked beyond its surface value. You saw possibilities where others saw limitations. Build something that matters, Jimmy, something that will last. And remember, sometimes the best revenge isn't in rubbing their noses in their mistakes, but in showing them a better way forward. Love, Grandpa." I looked up from the letter to see Uncle Robert standing in the doorway of the control room. He aged in the past year, the family's embarrassment over missing such an obvious opportunity weighing heavily on him. "Your grandfather was a smart man," he said softly. "I just never understood his kind of smart." "Would you like a tour?" I offered. "A real one this time, not just the parts we show the press." He nodded, and for the next hour, I showed him everything: the innovative cooling systems, the geothermal generators, the security features that had impressed the Pentagon. For the first time, he actually listened. "We were so wrong," he said finally, watching the servers hum efficiently in their underground home. "Not just about the land, but about you. About everything." "It's not about being wrong or right," I told him, remembering Grandpa's letter. "It's about being willing to see possibilities. Sometimes they're hiding right under our feet." The facility continues to grow and innovate. We're developing new technologies, pushing the boundaries of sustainable computing. The worthless 40 has become a symbol of innovation in the tech world. Brad and Tyler eventually came to work for the company, starting in entry-level positions and working their way up. They learned to see beyond the surface, to understand that true value isn't always in what's immediately visible. Uncle Robert retired from farming, but he often visits the facility, proudly telling visitors about his innovative nephew who saw possibility in worthless land. He's finally understood what Grandpa knew all along, that sometimes the best investments are in people who see things differently. Last week, a young engineer asked me for advice after a facility tour. "Everyone says my ideas about sustainable technology are impractical," she said. "They tell me to stick to conventional methods." I showed her Grandpa's old geological survey kit, still kept in my office as a reminder of where everything started. "Let them think that," I told her. "Sometimes the best innovations come from ideas others dismiss as worthless. Just remember to get all your permits filed properly and maybe keep a few secrets until you're ready to show the world what you've built." She smiled, understanding the lesson that had taken my family so long to learn. True value isn't always visible on the surface, and sometimes the most worthless things turn out to be priceless. As I write this from my office deep underground, watching the most advanced computing facility in the world operate with the efficiency Grandpa helped me envision, I think about how far we've come from that worthless piece of land. The future of sustainable technology continues to evolve, but one lesson remains constant. Never underestimate the value of looking deeper, of seeing possibility where others see nothing worth keeping. After all, sometimes the greatest innovations are built on the very things others dismiss as worthless. You just have to be willing to dig a little deeper to find them.